would it be okay if we just have a couple of questions, just a couple of questions for...
That was President Biden yesterday warning the UK's Boris Johnson about taking questions from the press. Turns out the media got more access to the British Prime Minister than our very own Commander-in-Chief. Johnson was happy to take questions from some British reporters. But as we've come to expect, the President Biden, was not willing to do the same. So apparently, Harris, the president was instructed not to take questions. We've heard this before. Roll the tape.
And I'm happy to take questions if that's what I'm supposed to do, Nance, whatever you want me to do.
Press, let's go. We're moving out. Press, let's go. Press, let's go, you guys. Come on, press. We're going to move out. Let's go, press. You guys, let's go. Come on, press. Let's go. Come on, let's go. Is this at the border, sir? Let's go, you guys. Come on. Here, let's go. Come on, thank you.
You'll be the first person I'll call.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Let's go.
All right, guys, go. Camera. Harris.
Wow. I just want to make it clear that that bleep was when things were being cut, that nobody was cussing.
Right.
Like, the feed was cut. I mean, we literally had no access. They just cut it right off. So my favorite part of that bilateral exchange between President Biden and the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, was Boris was loving that. He was like, I expect these questions to be ruthless.
Yeah. Yes.
And then you see the president going, oh, no, these are all for him. I mean... So I don't know what would go wrong if, look, there he is. He's saying, no, that's on you, bud. I'm paraphrasing, but that's technically, what was going on there. I'm curious to know what would happen if the guest said, you're America.
Yeah.
Freedom of the press.
Yes.
I can take the ruthless questions. Why can't you take a couple?
Yeah.
Now, I don't know who that might be. The way we treat France these days, it might be Macron when they get together again. But I'd love to see that, because how can you preach to the rest of the world what you inside the pulpit won't live by? Like, you preach to the congregation,
Yeah.
but you don't live by those things. That is the height of hypocrisy, which is something that this particular administration keeps getting hit with.
Yeah, that's right. And now you have reporters in the press pool who are finally upset by this. You have Ed O'Keefe from CBS, Steve Portnoy, Jennifer Jacobs from Bloomberg. They were all so upset at this moment. But my question is, where were you when Biden was hiding in the basement, demanding he answer questions during the campaign, calling lids? I'd be on Air Force One with the president for 5 rallies, and President Biden, then nominee, would call a lid at like noon. So where were you? Now you can complain, but hey, you kind of made the way for this.
Well, and it also might be too little too late, because who's the final arbiter? I mean, they lodged the complaint with the White House. What's going to happen?
Yes.
He's going to come outside and say, oh, sorry, guys, I'm so sorry. I'll answer your questions now. He's not. And this is on the heels of, remember, an administration and a then campaigner who really criticized the prior administration, they said, for vilifying the media. This president came out and said, this current one came out and said how dangerous it was to impede the media in any way. And now look at him. Not only has he anything but transparent, but he's frankly embarrassing on this national stage with how he reacts to and treats the media. That's not a leader. That's some feeble old man who is cowering away from the media while the UK Prime Minister looks on sort of in surprise and frankly indignation. Is this how you interact with the free press? Apparently under his watch, yes.
Yeah, that's right. Morgan, my top wrangler in the White House, Margot Martin, she was excellent. I asked her what her thoughts were, because there was also some complaints about how aggressive the wranglers, in other words, Psaki's staffers, were at pushing the reporters out of the room. And she said to me, I think it was obvious they had been told to drown out all questions. They barely let Boris finish the sentence. They didn't allow any pause in between. She said, I would say it's too aggressive. Always stop and see if the president wants to take questions. At least let him hear the question. That was the policy with President Trump. And even our Australian allies there are noticing. Let's pop up the tweet. Phil Wegman put this out. Phil Wegman said this: Australian reporters were surprised by Biden's aggressive press team. One was very startled. An Aussie journalist just asked the pooler whether White House wranglers were always so strict in ushering the pool out without questions. It seems like the world is noticing, Morgan.
Yeah, I agree with your Wrangler, Margot. That the thing that struck me most about that scene yesterday was the staffers yelling over a prime minister. You know, we're talking about a foreign head of state, one of our closest allies in the world. And I don't know about you, Kaylee. I can't ever think of a situation where me or my staff or you or your staff would yell over a foreign head of state. It's not only disrespectful to the media, the people, the American media who are trying to answer questions, it's really disrespectful to the prime minister. And it's the pattern that we've seen that you showed in the clips earlier, whether it's President Biden not being allowed to answer questions by his staff, whether it's cutting off his microphone. I'm glad that the press corps is finally speaking out about this because it's troubling. Listen, the President of the United States should be able to determine if he can answer questions, and never, ever should you be yelling over a foreign head of state. It's beyond disrespectful.
Never. And John, apparently after this, all the reporters rushed to Jen Psaki's office. Look, I've been in that office before when reporters have rushed in. They do that often, but I would have an answer for them. Jen Psaki, when they asked her about it, she said, wait, what happened? Because she wasn't in the room for the bilateral and then the pool spray. I, as press secretary, was always there, not just me, but also a deputy oftentimes. I mean, what was she doing, John?
What I wouldn't give if you were still the press secretary, I swear to goodness, I would give my best pair of boots if we could have you as the press secretary again.
Thanks, John.
You know, who is actually running our country? That's a real question. Why won't they let him answer questions? Are they afraid that he won't know the answer, or that he'll actually accidentally say the truth? That's a second question. And then thirdly, Jill Biden should be ashamed of herself for letting her husband be paraded around the entire world on national TV. This is a real-time case of elder abuse going on right now, in my opinion. Anybody who's ever had an elderly grandparent and the look in their eye and the way that they behave, that's what that looks like to me. I think it's absolutely terrible what we're seeing out of this president.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, as always, John Rich.